I got two words for you. Dream incubation. I feel like I say those words like 40 times a day now, but now my last video was kind of like a brief beginner's guide on the practice, but this video is going to go into a lot more detail and get really specific because I've learned a lot since then. Whatever you need guidance for in your life, your dreams can point you exactly in the right direction. Ask and you shall receive. The book Dream Guidance by Machiel, Klerk and Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming by Howard Rheingold and Stephen LaBerge are going to be my two primary sources for the information in this video. But I'm also going to be throwing in a lot of my own insights and stuff that I've learned along the way. So the essence of the main dream incubation method is you create a meaningful question about an area of your life that you actually want to know the answer to. Now this can range from life purpose, how to find love, how to achieve things in your career, how to improve your health or solve a personal problem you've been facing, even smaller day-to-day concerns. But if you create a question that kind of succinctly summarizes what it is you're looking for and you meditate on it before falling asleep, your dreams will serve as the answer to that question. It's the law of subconscious teleology. You sort of figure out what your objective is, you phrase your question, and then your dreams kind of figure out how to get there. It's like a GPS. Now these authors and many more have all kind of come to this conclusion, this very important principle present in dreaming. And it's the idea that in a dream, there is a greater awareness around you that isn't just your dream ego, even in a lucid dream. And this greater awareness is interested in helping you, or the ego, the part of yourself that you normally think of as you. Now from a Jungian perspective, this greater awareness is the totality of the self, right? Including the shadow and the collective unconscious. Other traditions interpret this greater dream awareness as sort of a telephone line to God or the greater oversoul of consciousness. You know, other traditions interpret it as through line to your ancestors. Whichever interpretation works for you, it's great. Bottom line is, there is a greater awareness that exists in your dreams that is actively interested in helping you. It is sort of an embodiment of great collective knowledge, and it is very capable of fulfilling whatever request you have for it. You see, all of this possessed this thing called tacit knowledge, which is the idea that we know more than we think we know. Consciously, we can't explain it. It's kind of like intuition, and dreams are the most effective way of accessing this level of tacit knowledge. And that knowledge can lead you to what it is your heart truly seeks. All right, creating your dream question. First, you got to figure out what it is you want to know, what your question actually is. It should be personally relevant and have a strong level of emotional attachment to it. And the stronger the level of emotional attachment to it, the more likely you are to get a much better result. Now, this is another one of Charles Baldwin and Emile Coué's laws of the subconscious. It's the law of auxiliary emotion. But anything ranging from career, love, life purpose, health, anything you value deeply is going to make for an effective question. And there are 4 different questions that Klerk and LaBerge have talked about. Number 1 is the diagnostic question. These questions help you figure out more about the situation that you're actually in. And these are particularly useful for health and social situations, but they help you get a greater overview of the problem that you're dealing with or a greater insight into your own emotional or psychic state. These questions are usually for figuring out what the problem is, but once you've had a diagnostic dream, you can get a prescriptive dream that shows you how to solve that problem. A lot of these questions kind of go hand in hand with each other, and you can chain them together night after night, usually only doing one question at a time. That's how you should do it. If you take full advantage of all the different types of questions and the incubation techniques, you can resolve your problems and achieve your ambitions much quicker. Number 2 is the prognostic question. If you want to figure out what could happen if you make a certain decision or analyze or contemplate a future outcome, this is the type of question. So the sleep researcher William Dement had a prognostic dream about smoking. In the dream, he was getting an x-ray and there was this really horrific tumor, and the aura of the dream was, very fearful and scary. But a prognostic dream, it was a prognosis. It was predicting the outcome of if he had continued his habits. And because the dream was so emotionally laden and it was such a powerful, vivid experience, that upon waking up, he quit smoking. Now, it's not the most impressive example of a prognosis because I think most people who smoke know that's kind of how the story ends. But the important distinguishing factor here is that the emotional content of the dream was so powerful that he was basically motivated to quit upon waking up. Now, that's the kind of principal advantage of using your dreams to achieve things, because they have such concrete and vivid emotional realities that they really sort of motivate you automatically to kind of pursue the direction that the dream is pointing you in. But prognostic questions are mostly useful for figuring out which course of action to take if you're kind of in the midst of a difficult impasse or decision. Now, a prognostic dream will kind of give you an outcome and the emotional reality of that associated outcome. And by listening to the feelings of those dreams, you can pinpoint which decision is the right one for you. In Deirdre Barrett's study on dream incubation, one of the participants essentially had a prognostic dream about which schools to go to for either clinical psychology or industrial psychology. So this participant had a dream that they were on a flight, and the pilot mentioned something about Massachusetts being very dangerous and how it should be avoided. Now, the clinical programs were located in Massachusetts, so upon waking up, the dreamer realized, oh, I probably shouldn't go to those clinical psychology programs. Now, the dream was, kind of metaphorical about it, but she still got a satisfying answer. Some other examples of questions could be like, what would my life look like if I took this specific job? Or what would my life look like if I moved to this city or this specific country? Again, you kind of want to be pretty specific with the decision that you're pondering and to think in terms of the outcome. Now, number 3 is the prescriptive question. So this is probably one of my favorites. These are the questions that actively work towards providing you with a solution to the problem. If you know what it is you want, this is the kind of question to ask. And a lot of these questions kind of start with how or what can I do to achieve, X result or ambition. Now, what you can do is write the specific problem that you're dealing with in detail in about 2 to 3 sentences. And once you've figured out what the actual problem is, you can sort of summarize it with a question at the end. And you can ask, how do I solve this problem? Sort of condense it into a mantra. And Deirdre Barrett's study focused really heavily on prescriptive dream incubation. 35% of the participants in her study received a solution in a dream within 1 week of incubation practice. And I don't know about you, but that is a ridiculously high success rate for just doing this stuff for 1 week. And I imagine if she had the resources to continue the study further, that those figures would be much higher. And especially with all the research that's been done on incubation since, it would be even more effective. Some questions include how can I bring more fun and excitement into my life? Or how can I resolve a specific fear, like a fear of public speaking? How do I resolve, one specific limiting belief? Now, the 4th type of incubation question is actually less of a question and more of a request. For a request, you can ask for a specific type of dream or a piece of insight. These questions are great for people that are creative types and more interested in exploring the spiritual dimensions of dreaming and dream incubation. So you can request pieces of artwork in a dream. Now, this could be anything from songs or poetry to painting ideas, which is what I've used it for before. I've had a few lucid dreams where I'm just walking around in these galleries that are full of paintings, and it's kind of a shame because I already have so many dream ideas to paint in a backlog right now, but I'll get around to it. You can request a dream with a specific subject matter, like a location or an action, like a flying dream or a lucid dream where you carry out a specific action. You can request to speak to a loved one or an aspect of your psyche, like your shadow or your anima or animus. And I've done that a few times, which is, you get some crazy results. It's kind of fun. You can also request for a dream to have a specific emotional quality, like especially if you've been dealing with a bad mood during the day, you can request for a dream to lift your spirits. Now, once you've got your question, it's time to dream. So before I fall asleep for the night, I open up my dream journal to the page for the day. I write down the date at the top and then right underneath it, the space for the question. It's quite a process for figuring out what kind of question to ask. So I have a scrap piece of paper or a Google Doc, and I just write out a bunch of different possibilities, and whichever one kind of really sticks out to me the most, that's the one that I go for and I write down. It doesn't need to be super complicated. It can be a pretty simple format for the dream journal entry, but once I've got it all written down, I go to sleep and try to focus and meditate on the question as I'm falling asleep. I usually just repeat it as a mantra, just repeatedly ask the question. And again, it doesn't have to be super complicated. You can visualize some associated imagery with the question if you feel like it's necessary, but it isn't absolutely. And you don't have to really force yourself to keep your attention on the question. It just should be dominating the majority of your thoughts. After about 4 hours after you initially fall asleep, your REM phases begin. This is when the vast majority of your dreams happen. And if you're the type of person to wake up at this time of the night, this is a great opportunity to bring your attention back to your question and sort of meditate on it again as you fall back to sleep. And this just usually helps me remember my dreams even more effectively, but it's not absolutely necessary. So now that you've had your dreams, it is time to write them down. When you wake up, you want to stay still, keep your eyes closed, and sort of work through the dream in your imagination and try to recall as many details as possible. Usually after a dream, I'll have 1 or 2 really important details that kind of stick out to me and feel particularly relevant to the question I've asked, and those are the ones that you want to focus on the most. And those little details tend to have strong emotional attachments to them as well. So once you've recalled most of your dream, then you get up and start writing it down. And my dream journal entries can get a little bit sloppy because, I'm writing in the middle of the night in the dark. So you can use a voice memo recorder. Those can be very useful, but it always helps to transcribe it physically handwriting because you kind of work through it cognitively as you're writing it down. which makes interpretation much easier later. It also helps to give each dream a title, just sort of for memory purposes. So now that you've got all your dreams recorded and they're all written down in your dream journal, you want to start interpreting them. So usually I'll have like a segment for a conclusion, and at the top I'll rewrite my question again and then look through all the details of the dreams, parse them, and interpret them in the context of the question. Again, I like to focus on strong feelings and repeating symbols, but usually you don't have to dig too deeply because, again, once you're interpreting it in the context of your question, a lot of things are going to start to line up pretty quickly. Some dreams can be very obvious when they're presenting an idea or a solution, and other times they're a little bit vague, and other times you might even forget your dream completely but still know what you need to do upon waking up. That is also a possibility. But if you've had a dream that's a bit vague or you've forgotten it, you can do a few things. Hone your question a little further, get a little more specific, or kind of work with it, and then try again the next night. Or you can look through other dreams that you've had and try to find the common thread between them and see if they can point you in the right direction. Especially if you've started remembering several dreams a night, once you get really deep into this, you can start to cross-reference your dreams with each other and sort of find out the common threads and engineer a solution that way. Dreams are always addressing the question you give them. If there's an issue with a dream, usually it's actually just an issue with the question that you've asked, or maybe your dream recall needs some work. And as you experiment and gain more skill with this practice, your dreams are going to get stronger too. Now, lastly, you want to express gratitude for the dream that you've received. Subconscious mind loves gratitude, and the more that you express it for your dreams and for the wisdom that you've received, the more powerful dreams and wisdom that you will end up getting. You can also preemptively express gratitude before you've had the dream, as you're meditating on your question, and magnify your chances of success with that. So that is the essence of the question practice in regards to dream incubation. And next time I'm going to delve into the world of lucid dreaming. Now, that is a whole different realm of possibility, but I think I'll be focusing mostly on extremely promising studies that have been conducted in regards to using lucid dreaming to resolve PTSD symptoms. And the results are incredible, and also they've flown completely under the radar for most people somehow. But aside from that, you can also combine lucid dreaming and dream incubation. It's a bit of a high-level technique that I'm still kind of figuring out how to do, but if you become lucid in a dream and then ask your question in it, chances are, you'll just get an answer right away, and that's a topic for another video. In the meantime, get back to incubating. I'll be back.